I'm Barry Kerzin, and I'm here to introduce a series that Tricycle Magazine is producing on Nagarjuna's wisdom. So first let me tell you a little bit about myself. Actually, it's a bit uncomfortable to talk about myself, but I've been requested to do it, so I will. I'm a fully ordained Buddhist monk, a Gelong in the Tibetan tradition, also called bhikshu in Sanskrit. I'm also a medical doctor, and I kind of merge these two worlds. So for many years I did meditation retreats in silence, mostly by myself. And for the last about 12 years I've been out teaching at the request of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I teach in medical schools, nursing schools, hospitals. I teach business leaders. I'm teaching in prisons in Japan. I lead meditation retreats. I lead sacred pilgrimages on a beautiful island called Shikoku in Japan. I have some academic appointments. Years ago, I was an assistant professor at the University of Washington at the School of Medicine. And currently, I'm an affiliate professor at the University of Washington, Tacoma, an honorary professor at the University of Hong Kong, and a visiting professor at Central University of Tibetan Studies in Sarnath, near Varanasi. So enough about me. I also do charitable work. For 30 years, I don't charge anybody anything when I do charitable medical work. And I take care of poor people in northern India, and I take care of also monastic people, including lamas, including the highest of lamas, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So enough about me. So now let me introduce the topic, which is Nagarjuna's wisdom. And at the end of this year, or beginning of next, 2018-19, we'll release my fourth book called Nagarjuna's Wisdom, a Practitioner's Guide to the Middle Way. And so I will discuss briefly about this book. What I'd first like to do is set the stage for you, set the stage for Buddhist wisdom and the importance of Buddhist wisdom. Compassion is where the rubber hits the road. This is what is most quintessential for our practice and our experience and our life, is compassion. The full form of compassion, sometimes in English called universal compassion, sometimes called unbiased compassion, is Bodhichitta. Sanskrit word, chitta means mind, bodhi means awakened. So what does it mean to awaken? So this is what the wisdom is all about. So you can begin to see that this universal compassion of Bodhichitta and the Buddhist understanding of wisdom, they're really not that separate. In fact, they're intimate. And in some ways, you can even say they're one and the same thing in terms of meaning. So how does this work? Well, what is compassion? So Bodhicitta, the mind of awakening, has two parts. There's conventional Bodhicitta and there's ultimate Bodhicitta. Now, ultimate Bodhicitta is the Buddhist wisdom of emptiness, that is, the lack of any intrinsic or inherent existence. Now, conventional Bodhicitta is the wish and then the engagement, the action of relieving and eventually eliminating suffering. Suffering from everyone without exception, including ourselves. So then what is suffering? Well, suffering was talked about by the Buddha as having several different layers or levels. So on the superficial level, we have pain, it's physical pain, we have psychological or emotional pain or spiritual pain, and that we all know and we can relate to. The second level, which is a little more subtle, is change, the suffering of change. Things do not stay static. They're always in flux. And so why is this suffering? For example, let's say I like chocolate cake. I don't like it as much as I used to, but I still like chocolate cake. Okay, so you go to a place and they've got great chocolate cake, and you order a piece of chocolate cake, and you eat it and you love it, and you want more. So you go back and you order another piece of chocolate cake. So you eat it and you love it so much, but you're totally full. And your friend says, you know, that cake was so good, let's have another. And I say, I'm full, I can't have any more. And the friend pleads, come on, just one more. So you take one more piece of chocolate cake. You enjoy it thoroughly. And you go home, go to bed, and you wake up at 2, 3 in the morning with indigestion. So there's an example of how pleasure turns into its opposite, pain. That's the suffering of change. The other type of change is when something just exhausts. For example, I buy a new car and I love it, and I drive it and I drive it and I drive it, and after a few months and a few years it starts to wear out. It's gone because of change. So this is another suffering of change where things don't last. Pleasurable things don't last. Now the third level, which is the deepest level that underlies the other two types of suffering, the normal suffering of physical and emotional suffering, pain, excuse me, and the suffering of change. Underlying both of these is what we call the conditioned suffering, sometimes called all-pervasive suffering. And this suffering is a distorted understanding of reality. So this distortion we sometimes call ignorance. And that's the deepest level of suffering or discontent or, dissatisfaction. And so what is the antidote? That is, how do we get rid of this distorted kind of ignorance, distortion of reality, of who we are and who the world is, what the world is? How do we get rid of this? Well, the antidote is the Buddhist wisdom. It's emptiness. It's a lack of any intrinsic or objective existence, that things have some existence from their own side. The lack of that is the Buddhist wisdom. And grasping at that things have an objective existence from their own side, this is the distorted ignorance. This is the third level of suffering. So now you can see that compassion, which is eliminating the wish and the action of eliminating suffering, at the deepest level, suffering is this distortion of reality. And the way we overturn that, the way we get rid of that, is through the wisdom of emptiness. So now you can see how intimately related compassion and emptiness or wisdom are. Good. I wanted to set the stage that way because our whole raison d'etre for writing this text, for studying this text, and trying to actualize the meaning from this text in our lives is compassion, to help others get out of this distorted misunderstanding of reality, find the correct understanding of reality, and find deeper peace and happiness and eventually full enlightenment. So now the name of the book is Nagarjuna's Wisdom, a practitioner's guide to the middle way.